Good morning. In this video we go on a globe-spanning quest in Total War Warhammer 3. That's right boys, I have installed the Champions of Undeath Conquest of the Blood Dragons mod, which allows us to play as knights in shining armor who also happens to be vampires. Do we use people as juice boxes to artificially extend our lives beyond the time given to us? Yes. Do we terrorize the local populace for a cheap laugh every single night? Obviously. And do we seek dominion over all sentient beings in order to fill that void that was left behind after our eternal soul shriveled up and died? Well, duh. But that doesn't necessarily make us into bad people. Ah shit, we're the bad people again, aren't we? God damn it! Our grand adventure began in the mountains between the oh so peaceful lands of the Empire and Bretonia, the land of shit and wine. Bloody peasant! Oh! As usual, I had exactly zero plans going into this. However, after a quick look on the map of great libraries we want to conquer to further our strange incomprehensible plans, I saw that the library in Nuln was pretty close to our current location. So, I decided to make that our first goal. Unfortunately, we play Total War Warhammer 3, which means that our path was immediately blocked by a shortage of dwarves. This meant that I had no other choice than to transform the collective noun I had just come up with into a literal fact. Having handled the situation with as much tact and finesse I could muster, we made our way into the Empire. There, we came across the city of Wissenberg, which gave me an idea. With living space being a premium inside the Empire, the ruins of the city immediately got surrounded by armies belonging to Avaland and Nuln. Now, I hadn't planned on taking the city for myself, since we are for the most part a horde faction. But since no less than 3 of the 8 libraries we need to get our hands on are located inside the Empire's borders, it is within my best interest to keep the Empire as weak as possible. Which means that we now had 2 options. Option 1, we could just leave and hope that they destroy each other fighting over the ruins, or option 2, I cut out the middleman and do it myself. I chose option 2. My first target was the army belonging to Marius Lightdorf. In this battle I decided to use my zombie and spooky boy legions as the anvil to the elite heavy vampire cavalry's hammer. And let me just say that the hammer and anvil is a certified hood classic for a reason. Elspeth, also known as the woman of my dreams, did put up a struggle in fight number 2. But thanks to my knightly vows, I was able to resist her feminine wiles. Also, I brought about 600 more guys than her. This might have helped. This left the road to Nuln completely open to our advances, and after taking it, we had a choice to make. Our faction is made up by 3 sub-factions: the Blood Dragons based out of Nuln, Ordo Templaris in Castle Drakenhof, and Ordo Profundum out of a pineapple under the sea. When we capture a city, we have to choose which order will be responsible for it. The only thing this changes is which units you will have available for defense and recruitment. And the recruitment part doesn't really matter, because you can upgrade your thralls into any order-specific infantry once they reach level 7 using Valor. To gain Valor, as you might imagine, you have to perform valorous acts, such as riding down fleeing peasants, feeding them to your zombies, feeding them to your pet dragon, and burning down people's homes. I think you get the point. Having given the city to the Blood Dragons, a rumor suddenly reaches my ears. A rumor that our vampire father Aborash, the very first Blood Dragon and the man who turned us, is once more walking these lands. For this reason alone, I immediately ordered a very thorough search of the neighboring town Grunberg. However, instead of finding my long-lost father with a handful of scratch cards and a carton of cigarettes, I kicked a nest of vampire hunters. Ah shit! So I crushed them for their arrogance and proceed south to deal with the Court of Night. Because much like the Highlander, there can only be one dark brooding vampire lord in these parts, and I intend to be him. Next, I turn back the Imperial Siege of Grunberg, burn Althoff to the ground for their insolence, and force Karl Franz into signing a humiliating peace deal. Listen, I might have started this war by unprovoked burning down Grunberg and raising all of its inhabitants as flesh automatons to help me look for my dad, but that does not make me a criminal. The fact that I will keep doing it most likely does. This seizure in hostilities with the living allowed me to go on my first quest battle and finally be reunited with my absentee father, who had been captured by the Spanish. I don't know why they had captured him, but I can only assume that they wanted to add some chlorine to the royal gene pool. This left me with a choice to make. Do I hand over the reins and let him take over the family business? Or do I keep him at arm's length in order to spare myself from future heartbreak? And in the end, I chose to keep going with Valak. Mostly because he looks like a crazy homeless guy, and he got a dragon. Next, I began to re-establish ties with the other orders. Each order have 3 tiers that can be unlocked using blood kisses. Each one will grant you access to higher tier units, buildings and research, with the final one also granting you the Grand Master of that order as a legendary lord. With the foundation laid for future cooperation, a worthy foe suddenly appears before us. Every few turns in this mod, a worthy foe battle will pop up near your main army. If you accept the challenge, you will face a unique army filled with mostly mod-specific units. In this one, we were attacked by a bunch of desert-dwelling vampires who thought it was a good idea to launch their attack downhill from us. They didn't make it. Turning south again, I eradicate the remnants of the Court of Night, declare war on Sylvania, and battle a bunch of high elves who had come to destroy us in our second worthy foe battle. Normally fighting 4 armies at once would be a pretty bad idea, even if they're not full stacks. But since we are a horde faction and therefore always possesses the home field advantage, they got their shit pushed in. Having fucked around for quite some time now, I decided to actually get on with what we were supposed to be doing, which was capturing libraries. So, I decided that a library in Castle Drakenhof would be our next target. On the way over there, I decided to take a short detour and burn Flensburg to the ground, and I wasn't the only one who thought that this was a very good idea, because we got helped by the Changeling. Which means that I start the battle, go and make myself a cup of tea and a sandwich for breakfast, and come back to a victory screen. Having filled up on bready goodness, I set my sights on the library. Once I got there, however, it was to my surprise under the control of Catherine of Kislev, as was the rest of Sylvania. This meant that instead of killing vampires, we are now killing Eastern Europeans, which doesn't really change much. Having beaten Vlad to Drakenhof, he offers us a peace agreement, and since he no longer holds anything I want, I saw no need in continuing hostilities. I am 100% sure that we can put all of this behind us and coexist as vampire bros from this point forward. Okay, maybe we can't. My next worthy foe was a bunch of hobgoblins who thought they could defeat me using bovine Gundams piloted by spirits from hell. I love this mod. With the East firmly under my control, I made my way back across the Empire once again and entered into Bretonia. The goal was to liberate the 3rd library located in Castle Carcassonne. Remember that, it will be important. On the way, I also took the opportunity to deal with Karl Franz and his goon, Boris Todbringer. I also decided to make a slight detour and complete another quest. This time we had to face down a band of Chaos Marauders under Sigwulf the Slasher. Surprising absolutely no one, the guy with wolf in his name brought a bunch of furries to fight for him, which means that for a brief moment in time our goals intersected with those of God. We don't have much in common, big guy, but this one's on me. Being almost max level on all my heroes at this point meant that I had access to some pretty sick abilities, like summoning OP Ghost Warriors, summoning Ghost OP Warriors on horseback, and my personal favorite, summoning Vampire Knights riding on Velociraptors.
Clever girl.
All of these abilities are extremely cool, and more importantly, they are completely free. What wasn't free, on the other hand, was the 7 elite Blood Dragon infantry units that got cooked in their own armor by dwarven flamethrowers. Which is something I can ill afford because it is now turned 70 and the end is nigh. As we enter into Bretonia, I make a slight mistake. For some unknown reason, I had gotten it into my thick head that the library was located in Blackstone Keep and not in Castle Carcassonne. I don't know why I suddenly thought this was the case, but the fact that I did was rather unfortunate for Kemmler, because we beat the absolute shit out of him. Having realized my little mistake, I graciously allowed Kemmler to pay me 3,000 gold for my troubles. I know, I'm a real softie, but hey, I felt bad for the guy and it was the least I could do. With that done, I continued my journey towards our original target, Castle Carcassonne, which thankfully was unoccupied. In the meantime, the pyramid awakes and I play Ring Around the Rosie with Karl Franz and Boris when I try to liberate the library of Middenheim. By which I mean that I shanked Boris in the street and ran away from Karl for several turns. However, much as in real life, at some point you have to stop running away from your problems and face them head on like a man. This bit of unexpected personal growth on my part was a rather unfortunate turn of events for Karl, because he is now dead. Rest in peace, you won't be missed. 4 libraries down, 4 more to go. At this point I, like so many men before me, felt a sudden and violent need to leave the responsibilities and squabbling of the mainland behind and find adventures on the high seas. So we left the green pastures of Bretonnia behind and took to the sea. The moment our feet leave terra firma, Vlad declares war on us and lose yet another 7,000 troops. Keeping with this theme, I am almost immediately attacked by undead pirates with massive flying galleons. The ocean proves to be as dangerous as it is vast. Or at least it was until I got off in the Great Desert. Having reacquainted ourselves with the locals again, I make my first tentative strike at Manfred von Karstein, who apparently has taken control of the Great Pyramid and consumed its necromantic power in order to become the Crisis. Now I think that it is important that you know that I didn't plan on having 4 vampire crises in a row. The game simply hates me. In the first real battle, Manfred had brought 2 armies to my 1. Since I was starting to get a little bored at this point, I sent all of my lords and heroes to deal with the first one, thinking that it would give us somewhat of a challenge. This did not happen. I knew my units were kinda OP, but I never really realized that it was actually this bad. Next, we head east toward the Great Pyramid, and when we see that its inhabitants have struck some sort of unholy alliance with the vampire hunters, I have no other choice but to act and take the pyramid for myself. This was probably a mistake, because Manfred have no less than 7 armies in the area. Now my units might be incredibly OP at this point, but 140 units versus 25 is still pretty bad. Thankfully, Manfred only used 4 of his armies when he attacked us the next turn. Since my army took a bit of a beating taking place because I can't be bothered to play siege battles if I don't have to, we have to rely on our heroes to hold this wretched pile of rocks. For 11 minutes straight, we beat the absolute shit out of them, and after having killed over 6,800 of his troops, the battle abruptly ended in a draw. What the fuck? I didn't even know that this was a thing. Considering it a pretty bad omen, we fight our way out of the pyramid and make our escape to the south. At the same time, we have finally re-established our alliance with the Templars and recruited their Grand Master Anarch von Karstein. Since Valak were busy fucking around in the sand, I put him in charge of capturing the remaining 4 libraries at Huatl, Lamia, Mount Gunbad and Nongshang. Getting to Mount Gunbad was relatively pain-free, because it only required me to burn down a reasonable amount of dwarven cities in order to get there. Lamia, on the other hand, was a bit more of a challenge, because I was chased the entire way there by several dwarven armies, including Balagar Ironhammer and Thuggrim Grudgebearer. Huatl and Nongshang, on the other hand, was by far the easiest, because once you re-establish ties to Ordo Profundum, you get access to Riptides, which teleports you across the map in only 2 turns. Having gathered my strength in the lush plains of Tulaqua, I decided to finish the last few quests before wiping Manfred off the map for good. We begin with the Brothers of the Black Grail. In this battle, we must help our knightly brothers defeat several orders of Bretonnian knights, and in so doing earning their undying loyalty. It would most likely be a very hard battle if it wasn't for the fact that I now had 5 max level heroes at this point. Next, I head north to secure the loyalty of Tiberius Kell, which we do by beating the absolute shit out of him. We then proceed south into the jungles of Lustria to destroy a hidden facility belonging to the Duskreavers. And to help us do it, we have ourselves. This is by far the largest battle we have had, and it almost killed my entire PC. I loved every single moment of it. Then we go north yet again, but this time we fight the Kislevites. Why? I don't know because I've stopped reading the detail screen. But some elves did die in the process, so I assumed that it was probably for a very good reason. Having killed Grombrindle and Hypnotoad respectively, I got a message from Malekith, the King of Darkness. What he wanted was no less than 61,000 gold. Now, just to be clear, the amount wasn't the issue. I had plenty of cash to go around if I wanted to take that route. The problem was, he did not say please. It was an ultimatum, a threat, a mistake. So I traveled to the donut using the powers of instant teleportation. There I took the Sword of Cain from some random Dark Elves and continued to Kislev, where I borrowed the Nemesis crown from Throth the Unclean. And then I showed the world the true meaning of power. I did this by having a rendezvous with his mother, beating the absolute shit out of him in front of all of his friends, and then leaving without saying a single word. I then wrapped up the last 2 quests of the game, win a long victory, and take on 4 of Manfred's armies on my own. It probably was a bit of hubris on my part, but while I didn't win the battle in the strictest sense of the word, Manfred most definitely lost it. With that done, I eradicate all of his armies, burn down his cities, and conquer the Black Pyramid and win the ultimate victory. Champions of Undeath is a triumph for the modding community, and I have thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. The new lords, heroes and units are all unique and very fun to play. They are also completely OP, which just adds to the appeal. The quest battles and worthy foes are all amazing, and instead of fighting what feels like random battles with some extra shiny loot in the end, each one actually feels unique and adds some much needed flavor to the game. 10 out of 10 would become knights in shining armor again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I got. So thank you all so much for watching, like and subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one. Peace!